All right. So we're gonna get ready to start playing this. This is the part where it really starts to get interesting. I backed it up a few seconds. We'll back it up just a few more. So, um, this entire 22 minutes here that we've seen in the video already, 22 minutes and 45 seconds of a call with Sean. This is the part where it's going to get real interesting. You might have noticed from the previous two videos that these people aren't being mean. They seem more like they don't know what's going on. And why would they know what's going on in this situation? So I'm trying to fill them in on what's going on. And when it comes to the mandatory reporter thing and being shuffled around between people who are and are not, and of course, then there's the attitude that I'm getting from certain people that, it's not okay. Um, if you've got mandatory reporters, they have a job to do. And in some of the other videos that you'll get to hear later on, you'll get to hear these people, like Melissa saying that she's not a mandatory reporter, but some of the peer support are. So she's giving instructions to the peer support workers who are mandatory reporters and telling them that the most important part of their job, they're not even allowed to do. They're not allowed to call the police or sheriff's department if one of us is being abused. They're only allowed to call the police and the sheriff's department if we want to harm ourselves or others. But if someone is harming us, they're not allowed to call. That's illegal. That is illegal. Now, because of the situation with Adult Protective Services, yeah, that's actually who technically they are supposed to call in these situations. And the assaults, they're supposed to call the police. But the thing is that the types of abuse that I'm enduring, the police don't give a shit. They've shown that outright. They've shown outright hostility on more than one occasion. They've repeatedly lied in court. So what we're going to do here, we're going to press play on this, and I'm trying to explain to this guy that I need to turn in the felonies committed by Melissa and Shelley. So this is the part where if he is a mandatory reporter, this stuff isn't okay. If he's not a mandatory reporter, the fact that he still had Melissa call me back, that that's not okay. That's inappropriate entirely. So let's press play on this. Um, like I said, they were nice. It's kind of like the cops when I got here. Most of the time, cops are complete jerks right from the start. At least the cops here bullshit me nicely to begin with and didn't become major jerks until there was multiple assaults that they'd ignored.
If there is and again, if there's an abuse, someone with developmental disability, ODHS is who oversees that. And I want to understand from them if who the appropriate agency is here locally actually to be involved in that work. So
TFCC refuses to work with me because I'm trying to turn them in. The last time they pretended that they were going to work with me, they were trying to basically, again, have me pegged as schizophrenic and or delusional while I was in the jail to cover up for jail staff and for the staff at TFCC who knew that this stuff was going on the whole time and still continued to pretend it was a delusion. So the other agency is Northwest Senior and Disability Services. I can't make it to Northwest Senior and Disability Services. I know they got a bus, and that bus might go that route and might go past there. But even if the bus does go past there, I've been there before and they've blown me off the same way. And in some of those situations, some of those workers got an attitude with me, and that's definitely something that's going to send me into a mental breakdown. When I say attitude, I mean, well, we'll get into that. We'll focus here on the conversation with him, and we'll break it down as we go along.
I'll take a look. I'll look at any file Care may have, which I agree, if we have any file, you certainly are welcome access to that. But then secondly, I actually want to find out through DHS who would be the agency that someone would be reporting to, what the steps and what the right process is for that. So I'm happy to do both of those things.
Yes, sir. Another thing is that some of the things that have done by care employees are just misdemeanors, but some of them are felonies. The situation with you being the new director, I would like to be able to show you the situation with the people that you have working there currently, and how this is played out. How they keep, when I bring something in, I'm assaulted a lot, and every time that I bring something in, I'm redirected to the housing thing, which you've already addressed.
Yeah, I'm told to go to care. They've been doing this since 2022. They tell me that care has peer support workers that'll help me. I had to deal with a similar situation in Hood River. Um, in Warrenton and Astoria, we didn't even get that far. Um, thank goodness the librarian in Warrenton was nice to me. He even told me that they had uh, a meeting with the county managers meeting that I was brought up. So interesting piece of information there, I guess. This is something that's been ongoing. I've had to move elsewhere. I've also, when you're living on disability, it takes a while to actually be able to afford to do anything, including moving. And your disability money, your back payments when you first get disability money are supposed to help you with that. But that back money that I was getting was being used up because that was just before and right after Natalie was killed. I was spending all of my money to try to find one mandatory reporter in the whole goddamn planet that would do their fucking job. Like, holy Christ, how difficult is it to listen to a man who's telling you that people are threatening to fucking kill him and people are assaulting him and he's got fucking evidence of it, and you go, oh, well, I can't look at it. You gotta turn that into somebody else. Oh, fuck all of you guys. It's bullshit. Why do you have laws to protect disabled people if the moment they start getting disability, you go out of your way to pretend that they're fucking schizophrenic and goddamn delusional? Like, holy fuck.
Thank you for that. The reason I'm bringing it up is because with the housing thing, we really need to be on the housing thing. Russell said that we're going to need me to get my disability money back. So I got that started. I'm getting my check every month, but none of the back pay, which is also important, which he helped to get started. Um, there's a lot of stuff that he helped to get started, and as soon as I got Shelly, it all just basically slagged out. And, most of the time she doesn't even show up. And when I am told that I have to go into care because they're supposed to advocate for us, when I go into care and I tell the care employees down at the lower building about whatever it is that I'm having to turn in there, then they tell me, oh, well, we'll set you up an appointment with Shelly. Shelly sent me a message earlier today saying that she's not going to work with me anymore. So as far as the housing goes, we still haven't made any progress on the housing with that. Russell helped me to get the bank account that I would need. He helped me get all of the stuff that I would need that housing was going to request as soon as I'm accepted. So
I'm going to pause that so you can see that my voice is only elevating because of the rain, and also so that you can see that it's not raining here now. So that is part of the video. It's not me just trying to raise my voice at the guy for no reason.
somewhere, but Sorry, it's raining again.
You are wanting support with housing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've filled out that housing paperwork since 2022. I've done that repeatedly. Yeah, I've never been against the housing. What I'm against is the fact that we're not getting housing, and I'm just, even after I fill out the paperwork, we're not doing anything about the abuse. When I was sent to care, I was sent to care because I was told that you guys would have. It was literally over a room when I was sent to you guys in 2022. I was told that the police did not have a room that a victim could sit down in and write a police report and gather the evidence. I was told that CARE would have that. I went to CARE for that. CARE sent me to TFCC. TFCC said that they have plenty of rooms, but not for that. And it also ended up being a situation where I'm told along the lines who it is that's a mandated reporter and who's not. So I'm trying to turn in the assaults to mandatory reporters, and they're telling me, oh, well, we only deal with housing, or my primary job is housing, but they're still mandatory reporters. And that's the issue, not just with all of these other agencies, but also with CARE, also with Melissa, who keeps going out of her way to cut off anybody who's willing to do that or willing to try. And also the stuff that
I'm pausing it for a second. It's called obstructing justice. I'm going to press pause on this because I'm going to make myself some coffee real quick, and that gets loud and it makes it difficult to hear. It shouldn't take too long. Alright, well, I decided I'm going to finish this video. I'm kind of scared that it'll turn off in the middle of it while I'm making the coffee, and I definitely don't want that either.
it's in my file that Miss Shelley destroyed, like, that's evidence that I went in repeatedly as I was supposed to turn in the things that I was told to. I'm sorry if that sounds too generalized, but there's a lot of specific situations with a lot of details in each individual situation.
Yeah, and I guess I just want to clarify though, and it sounds like you've had success with Russell, so I'm going to see if maybe his position has changed here. I'm going to see whether or not he might be able to provide some continuity on the housing work. There's a difference between reporting and investigating, and so CARE would not be involved at all in gathering evidence or doing any kind of investigation.
Yes, sir, and I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware that if you guys, as mandatory reporters, don't look at the evidence, then you don't feel that you have to report it. Obviously, I'm not speaking to you in specific because you haven't personally done this.
I'm going to pause this again. So the issue through this is that obviously I'm already aware that they're not investigators. I'm also aware that the investigators aren't trying to hear my side. No matter what, they don't come and hear my side. They don't come and look at the evidence. They don't coordinate with me to work with my disabilities. I can't do this stuff myself. I can't carry this stuff all myself. I don't have the money to do all of the things that I am expected to do every month by all of these different peoples in order to get their help. I don't have the ability to do it. So, he's going to say things like this repeatedly that it's not their job to investigate and it's not their job to gather evidence. I'm not asking them to gather evidence. I have the evidence. I've been gathering evidence for years. I've got so much evidence that's been lost, stolen, or destroyed. Like, you got to see my floor in my videos, like the whole thing. I've got a whole bunch of pieces of paper just in here. I've got video after video. There's also a bunch of stuff that I can't get access to because when I'm arrested and locked up on false charges and I'm not able to pay my bills, I don't know how to do that stuff to get it all fixed up and working it again. And I do understand that has a lot to do with my disabilities. It mostly has to do with the PTSD that keeps me from functioning, especially with being messed with. People threatening to kill my friends and family. Yeah, anybody would have an issue with that. So, one thing that he's going to keep on saying in this is that now he doesn't say that he's going to look at it. This is one of the situations where almost every mandatory reporter throughout this has refused to look at evidence, and then they say that they can't do anything because they didn't see it. And like I said, these predators aren't going to do this in front of a police officer. They're not going to do this in front of a social worker. Very similar to if your dad is, if a 9-year-old girl is being raped by her dad is not going to rape her in front of a social worker. She shouldn't have had to record him raping her. But now that she has a recording of him raping her, they need to take it seriously. When it ends up being a situation where now she's got dozens of recordings of him doing this and dozens of recordings of her trying to turn it in and dozens of recordings of child protective services and any other place that she goes to making these excuses. You say, hey, my dad raped me. As a 9-year-old girl, you go in and you say, my dad raped me. And they say it's not their job to look at evidence. It's not their job to collect evidence. Then again, if it was a 9-year-old girl, they'd be a lot more likely to investigate it now, wouldn't they? They're supposed to come at it with that same energy if it's a disabled person or an elderly person as well, just so you know. Could you imagine a 9-year-old girl being homeless and having to go through all of this, having to come up with these resources? Most of my resources came from other people, thank goodness. Poor people who are afraid of the police, who are being victimized by CARE themselves, and Tillamook Family Counseling Center. And there's a lot of people that got an issue with Shelley.
But it's a situation where I have been doing what I'm supposed to with that. I keep getting told that someone's going to get me in contact with the right person, but nobody knows who the right person is. When it comes to mandated reporting, when it comes to somebody who's disabled and being abused, trying to turn in abuse, every mandatory reporter is supposed to take that as seriously as a report of child abuse. The same thing as if it's an elderly person who goes in there, and the CARE employees are just as negligent as these other agencies in that. We don't want to do the job of a mandatory reporter, so we're going to send you to TFCC.
Yeah, again, I just want to make sure, though, that for an organization like CARE would not be looking at evidence or gathering evidence at all. The reporting aspect is just assisting in making a call to ODHS.
But are they making those calls, and is anybody doing anything about it? They're not making the calls. They haven't been making the calls. They've been repeatedly telling me, mandatory reporters, we have recordings from many, many, many mandatory reporters saying exactly the same thing. What did Miss Shelley say? More than once. Like, oh my God. And you guys who have listened to the videos and gone through it, it's the same thing. Let's back that up just a little bit and then listen to him.
Employees are just as negligent as these other agencies in that. We don't want to do the job of a mandatory reporter, so we're going to send you to TFCC.
Yeah, again, I just want to make sure, though, that
They wouldn't be looking at evidence at all. That's an important thing to note. Nearly every mandatory reporter that I've had to speak to has told me more than once that they're not going to turn it in, and they can't turn it in because they didn't see it happen. But they can't look at the evidence. When are they going to make the call? What are they making the call about? Are they taking the time to listen to what the call is about? Now, we got to hear he did listen for quite a bit there, but there's a lot more to it. And there's the crimes committed by Shelley and Melissa. And I do, in fact and indeed, try to tell him about that and try to schedule it to go in and show him in person so that it is taken seriously now instead of blowing me off for a week. Now, in this, he's going to say that he'll call me. Well, he was supposed to call me on Tuesday or Wednesday. Wednesday, I think. It's Friday now.
assisting in making a call to ODHS.
And the issue is that they haven't been.
So a lot of the stuff that needs to be turned in is the fact that they haven't been doing this when I go to them with this abuse that I'm enduring. The other thing is because of my disabilities, and that includes the things that have been stolen from me, the things of mine that have been destroyed, and my physical body, there's a lot of stuff that I am incapable of. And I don't have a friend or family member helping me out with those things that I'm incapable of. You know, just because you're able to do it doesn't mean somebody else can. Just because you know how to do something doesn't mean somebody else automatically knows it. Just because somebody is a certain age doesn't mean that they automatically, know things that nobody else knows. They're obviously wise to the universe when you hit 65 or something. No, it doesn't work that way. It's kind of like a lot of people think that just because you're intelligent, you grew a nuclear physics degree somewhere along the way. No, that's not how it works either. I've got a lot of retained knowledge. That doesn't mean I know everything.
The issue is that they haven't been. When I go in to turn in abuse, I'm treated like the abuse is not important, that housing is what's important, that if I'm assaulted, that doesn't matter. Housing is what matters. And they don't report it. None of these mandatory reporters are reporting it. This situation with Miss Shelley finally reporting a situation with a stalker about 2 weeks ago, and immediately our very next meeting, all the stuff that she said that she was going to help me with, she told me that Melissa said she's not allowed. The primary excuse that I'm getting out of mandatory reporters for not reporting is that they weren't there to see it. You don't have to be there to see it. A mandatory reporter doesn't have to be there watching a rapist rape a child in order to do their job to turn it in. Now, if they're wanting to treat me like it's delusional and refuse to look at the evidence that these things are going on and say, oh, well, I don't have to do it because I didn't see the evidence, well, then I've got evidence of people assaulting me. I've got evidence of people threatening my life, and I'm getting treated like I'm delusional because they're not looking at the evidence. I'm not saying it's their job to investigate. It is their job to initiate the investigation, and that's what they haven't been doing. The other issue is that the police are a part of this situation of running me around in circles. They've let me know in this town outright that I'm not considered a human being. Anybody can harm me at any time and call me mentally ill and get away with it. If I try to turn in a crime, I'm going to be getting the mentally ill treatment and told that it's nobody's job as a mandatory reporter to do their job as a mandatory reporter. I'm not saying that it's TFCC's job or CARE's job or any of these other places' job to investigate. And this is the thing that they keep changing the subject to as well, is that it's not our job to investigate. No, it's not. But it is their job to investigate.
By the way, it is TFCC's job to investigate. They're the quote unquote mental health, Social Security mental health people here. Because Social Security doesn't do it themselves. They send you to these fucking twerps. That's right. I went to ODHS. I went to Health and Human Services. Not their job, but they wanted me to fill out housing paperwork, which I did. It's funny how all these places with mandatory reporters don't do their jobs as mandatory reporters. They say, I didn't see it, so I can't turn it in. And you say, I have evidence. I brought it with me. I'll show it to you. Oh, well, I don't need to see it. I believe you. Well, turn it in then. Come on. Like, there are so many different things that they say, but don't actually follow through with what they're supposed to do legally.
Initiate the investigation. If there's a piece of evidence that a child is being raped, then yes, that situation and that evidence needs to be taken seriously. Not only that, but the victim, as well as the evidence, needs to be preserved. That's the very first thing that we learned in the mandatory reporter training in Colorado. We also learned that we're supposed to listen, which you're doing a very good job of. But the preservation of the evidence and the safety of the victim are the most important thing. And, you know, I keep getting told, oh, well, you'll be safe once you're in housing. But again, we're not working towards housing. I'm working towards housing and then getting talked at like I'm not working towards it in almost every meeting with Shelley. She has a bad habit of interrupting just about anything to do that. If there's something that we can actually be working on as far as the paperwork goes, if I offer to do the paperwork again, let's do it. You know, it's better than waiting months and months and months. So when you're telling me that you're mandatory reporters but you're not investigators, I knew.
You guys can hear me try not to stutter there. That's because I had about 6 different scenarios running through my head all at once. Things that actually happened, but also how they affect the situation, and I had to try to keep myself on track. Um, it's a lot easier to do when I'm in a positive environment, when I get to see my friends and family. I mean, I was homeless in Boulder, Colorado for years. All right, years. And that was the happiest I was my whole life, despite the hardships. That's because for the first time in my life, there was people who would talk to me instead of talk at me. There was people who would actually care if people who were hurting me would step in and say, that's not okay, stop. There were even occasions where, as much as I hate to say this, I refused to fight these people because I wasn't interested in fighting ever. And after somebody beat me up, and the people who saw this person beat me up noticed that it happened, they went after that person and beat them up. And then I had to try to stop people who were trying to harm that dude. Like, yeah, I realized he was just hitting me, but now I'm in between two of my friends who are beating on him, trying to get them to stop hitting him. I mean, the stuff that I went through as a homeless person, there's a lot of stuff that really sucked. But the things that suck the most is, number one, the cops fucking not doing their jobs for disabled people and especially homeless people. They basically hunted us for entertainment. And I'm not talking about, like in those crazy movies where they're hunting people with rifles. No, they basically treat us like shit and come up with any excuse they can to lock us up like we're animals. It's disgusting.
That from the start. I knew this from Colorado. I knew this from Nebraska. You know, I've been all over the place dealing with the abuse. But the other thing is that the abuse is over. You know what A&E is, right?
I do not.
Okay, so A&E is a true crime channel. One of my friends was killed in Colorado a few years ago, and you can ask Miss Shelley about this, and Miss Russell about it. They've looked up this stuff. They know that the situation with Natalie is a real situation. It's not a delusion. this is one of the things that people keep harming me over is the popularity of it, because this is a TV channel. I was in Tillamook when they posted this stuff up on TV. Natalie had been dead, and her murderer had been in prison literally for years by this point. And the influx of abuse that I continue to have to deal with, the amount of assaults over that, the amount of threats against my life, I've tried repeatedly to show this stuff so that these mandatory reporters will actually do their job and do their due diligence and turn it in. Instead, I'm told that it's not their job. They refuse to take a look and refuse to turn it in. And this is, I'm not sure how better to explain that I've been to every agency in Tillamook and been blown off. None of the mandatory reporters did their job, and that's against the law. And then when I try to turn them in, I'm basically punished for that. One thing that I'm worried about now is I have to worry that I might be retaliated against for trying to turn in Miss Shelley and turn in Melissa.
So right there, I let him know outright I was afraid of being retaliated against for that. He knows that I'm trying to turn them in. I am trying to turn them into him. This is part of the abuse that I've had to endure. Like I said, sexual assault is not the only type of abuse that disabled people have to endure. Any of these types of abuse need to be turned in. And if that disabled person is being taken advantage of by the police, or they're taking advantage of his or her disability as an excuse not to do their jobs, that does need to be taken into account. It does need to be taken seriously, especially when that prevents vulnerable adults from being able to record for their safety. See, here's the thing about recordings. Recordings don't make you unsafe. They make you safe. People are more honest in some cases when they're being recorded. In other cases, they're less honest. Some people, when they know that they're not being recorded, will be completely honest. But the moment that they know they're being recorded, they get all blue. That's all, folks.
Well, no, I appreciate talking with you, John, and I'm going to do two things as a next step. One is I'm going to connect with Russell and see if he's got some availability to be able to continue to support the housing work and as well run down, what you have said about the file here. And then second is I'm going to understand what we might be able to do in terms of working with ODHS. So let me take those couple of next steps, and then I will reach back out to you.
Yes, sir. The one thing I want to say, though, is that it's not taking seriously the safety risks that I'm enduring. If somebody takes the time to look at just a few of these things, that they'll see that this is a very major situation. There is a lot of harm happening, and it is verified, it is documented. And the stuff at CARE, the issues specifically with CARE and my file, I do want to be able to bring what I have and speak to you personally and sit down with my file and with what I have, because if you guys are going to be able to help me, you have to have the right information. The right information leads to the right decisions. That's one of the things that we learned in Colorado as well, but that was a different class, not mandatory reporter training.
I'm going to pause for a second. So, mandatory reporter training is some really stupid shit. Okay, I want to state that. That's my opinion of it. The fact that we had to make laws to state common sense. The fact that we had to make laws to force people to do the job that they're paid for and make legal consequences if they don't. Obviously, there's an issue with Melissa and an issue with Shelley, and I'm trying to turn those issues in. These are crimes that were committed against me. He has been made aware of that. Um, obviously, this isn't a fun situation for me. So he tells me he's going to call me back the next day. Um, and like I said, with all of the mandatory reporters that I go to trying to turn this stuff in and get help, the help that I need so that I can actually get it to who it needs to go to and not have it misused or have these people at the other end pretend that they can't see it or I never sent it or that when I send evidence of the threats against my life that they don't use it to pretend that I'm threatening their life and then pretend that the threats against my life are just illusions. We've already posted up on my channel the evidence that they were trying to play me off as delusional, even after finding out that the things they were pretending are delusional are absolutely true. Like Natalie Bollinger.
Does that make sense?
It does. Let me take these next two steps and then give you a call and we can take it from there.
Thank you, sir.
You are very welcome, Sean.
All right. Is there anything else, or should I just say thank you and wait for you to call back?
No, I will. I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Be safe.
Have a good night, Sean.
All right. Very good.
Except he didn't give me a call tomorrow, did he? No, he didn't. Instead, what did he do? He had Melissa call me. See, he didn't call me on Wednesday like he was going to. And then Thursday, he doesn't work Thursday, he doesn't work Friday, he doesn't work Saturday, and he doesn't work Sunday. So he works 3 days a week. That's similar to out at the jail. The administrators are not there for most of the week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they're gone. So the situation with Melissa not being a mandatory reporter, she should not be telling peer support who are mandatory reporters not to do their jobs. They're still mandatory reporters. And all of these mandatory reporters who wanted to tell me that they don't have to do their jobs because they didn't see it, and they go out of their way not to set up an appropriate meeting in a quick and efficient manner. So I'm still here not having anyone to take a look at the evidence in person that actually gives a shit. And then they want to give me a time limit. They want to rush it, and I basically have to find like basically the top 10 crap to show them. Like this is the top 10 worst incidents that I have actually recorded. Not the top 10 worst instances overall, because, like I said, at the very beginning, I didn't have the ability to record these things. Later on, I did get the ability. People were starting to teach me how to use these things, and I was starting to collect some of that knowledge and some of the electronics that were necessary, but I was never any good with any of them. I'm still not any good with them. You can see that. Anyway, I'm going to end this video. Um, he was nice through the whole thing. That's good. But we needed to focus on the fact that I've gone to the mandatory reporters and they said that it's not their job, or they said that they're not willing to look at the evidence, and because they didn't see it, they don't have to turn it in. If your daughter went to a mandatory reporter and said, I have video evidence of my dad raping me, and that mandatory reporter said that shit to your daughter, how would you feel? What would you do? I'm not talking about the stuff that's going through your head right now with that scenario where you're thinking about getting violent. I'm talking about what you do after you calm yourself down a bit. Of course, a lot of these places you can still call when you're hysterical over a situation like that, and they're more likely to listen to you as a mother.